Hey, welcome back to the Resolution Podcast, where we help artists gain clarity on their calling. I'm your host, Alex Lacey, and usually we have guests on the show, but not this week. Instead, I wanted to update you guys on everything that's been going on. I recently just rearranged my room. As you can see, it's so much better. I've been doing some research on lighting and photography, which is why I have a light right there, a light right there, and a light over there. It's looking pretty good compared to what it used to look like. I'm very excited for it. And if it fits, just because I've got a lot planned this year. I've had a lot on my mind in terms of ideas of what I want to do with my brand and what I want to do with the podcast. And I've actually finally drew it all out, like, what was it, Christmas? I think it was Christmas Day last year. So yeah, I'm super excited for everything that's going to happen. Actually, I'm going to give you guys a little sneak peek. I'm trying to put on a Patreon and start doing some subscription services and stuff like that. But yeah, and first of all, excuse me, Happy New Year's to everyone. I hope you all are having a good, what was it? It's the first 2 weeks into this new year, first 2 weeks into 2023. Yeah, it's coming by quick already. I mean, I'm graduating college this year and I'm going to be off. I just got an internship, and I also now have a job at a recording studio, or no, not recording studio, podcast studio, which is ironic because I have my own podcast, so I might start doing some in there. It's actually that video with Charles Dietz. Charlie D, excuse me. That's in the podcast studio at which I work, which was funny because I wasn't working there at the time, but I'm working there now, and we're doing a lot of brainstorming, a lot of ideas for how we want to redesign the place, because originally it wasn't meant for audio. It was only meant for audio. It wasn't meant for video at all. So I'm trying to get some better setups in there, do a bunch of research, again, on the lighting and things like that. So yeah, I'm very excited for this year. But I also want to talk about resolutions, and which is funny because that's the name of this podcast, Resolutions. Which, by the way, I'm gonna break down what that actually means, because I've told a lot of people, and they're like, oh, okay, I see what it means now. So resolutions is clarity and calling. It's kind of a double entendre with the name Resolutions. So solutions is like calling. I believe that we're called to solve an issue, or at least help solve an issue. That's like what Tupac said with I don't believe that I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee I'm going to spark the mind that does. We're solving even the issue with that. The issue could even be just helping the mind or inspiring the mind to change the world. So it can even be, there's no role that's too insignificant, or I guess that's a good way to put it. No role that's too insignificant to just put out into the world and solve that issue, because it's going to inspire somebody else. With that, So that's the solution part, and the resolution is like resolution is clarity. So it's clarity on your calling, resolution, like resolution for your solution. So that's where that all comes from. And there's actually that's why I have the little clarity thing in there in the thumbnail for this as well. So, and that's actually my handwriting, fun fact. So you're getting a sneak peek. I'm actually looking at my handwritten notes right now, so that you'd like to know. But with resolutions or resolutions, there comes a time when we all get discouraged. And it happens to all of us. It happens to me all the time. It's an awful thing. It's borderline disease. It's not a good time. So I just read this book that completely changed how I view... Actually, let me back up. A lot of times we get discouraged from other people's opinions. Like, that's just friends, family, like people just being discouraging. They don't see our vision. And it's not fun. It's not fun to not only not have support, because that's one thing. Like, if you post something and nobody likes it, or you post something and you get no likes and you only get like hate comments. So I mean, it sucks. It just happened to me the other day. So I just read this book called The Four Agreements. You might have heard of it. And I think it is going to solve a lot. I mean, it changed the way I look at the people around me in general. Like, closest friends, my family, my girlfriend. Like, it changed everything. It was called The Four Agreements. And I want to break down each, like, I have all my highlights from my book, because I have a Kindle. If you don't have a Kindle, and you're into reading, I highly recommend you pick one up, because it's so nice. You can just have a whole library in your pocket. So, I mean, they have a Kindle app too, so you can get that as well. But it talks about how we see things. It's really all about perception. It's really all about a shift in perception. And it's talking about how to get to that shift in perception. I think, what was it? I have to find this. Your mind is a dream where 1,000 people talk at the same time and nobody understands each other. And I went, whoa. That, first of all, that sounds like me, because I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you as well, but my thoughts get so loud sometimes. I will just be silent. I will just be thinking about something so intently that I think I'm speaking, but there's no words coming out of my mouth, and I can't hear anything. It's just my thoughts. Like, when I was rearranging this room, I was just thinking so intently about how this would look before I started rearranging things, that I couldn't think of anything else. It was just almost possessive. It's pretty wild. It happens to me not fairly often, but stuff with like rearranging rooms and brainstorming and things like that, which, by the way, the mind is not meant to store ideas. It's meant to make ideas. So if you have a bunch of thoughts in your head that you're like, damn, this is insane. But you know what? I'll just remember this. I'll just remember it from now on. Like, I'll just remember it later. Like, it's all good. Don't. Write it down. Your brain is not meant to store ideas. It's meant to make them. So if you start notes, just put it on your notes app. Put it on. I use Notion. I use that for a lot of my ideas. And that was the thing that I had with all the, like, I have a full on plan for 2023 of what I want to do. It was getting to be a lot, because it was just constantly like flipping upside down in my head. And then finally I just wrote it all down, and now it's like my mind is at peace, which is why people take up journaling to that point as well. So anyway, I want to get back to the notes here from the book. But anyway, that's just a tidbit. Like, journal, write ideas down. You get it. All right. So I also wrote to that, your mind is like a dream where 1,000 people talk at the same time and nobody understands each other. Which, first of all, is true. Like, I completely agree with what he was talking about. But it also reminded me of social media, because it really seems like everybody's talking. Everybody has something to say. And it's just an echo chamber. Everybody's talking, but nobody's really listening. And that's where I think a lot of people stand out, is they listen and then they come up with incredible ideas, and they're able to help a lot of people just because they listen. I mean, that was actually a big struggle of mine just the other day. Was I felt like I wasn't listening to who I was trying to help. I'm trying to help hip-hop artists speak their truth. That's my whole tagline. That's for everything. That's what I'm trying to do at the end of the day. That's why I started the podcast, really, because I'm getting people on and having them speak their truth, and a lot of those people are artists. So who you're trying to help, you have to listen to them before you can even help them. Even begin to help them. You have to try to understand them. I was actually just listening to Curtis King today, and he was talking about that wasn't Curtis King. That was a sermon today that I was listening to. He was saying, it was TD Jakes. He was talking about how counseling is awesome, and it can help give you an understanding of yourself that you didn't have before. But a good counselor, they shut up for the first half, first maybe 3/4. All they're doing is listening, because they're just trying to understand you. They're trying to understand what you need, what advice they can give you. That's it. So if a lot of people, including you, just shut up from time to time. You don't always need to be talking. You just soak some of it in. And that's another thing too that's very important to note. Listening is not the same as anticipating what you're going to say. Listening is a full-on action in and of itself. It's being completely present, letting the other person feel heard, because nobody's doing that nowadays. That's why depression is so high. That's why mental health is so awful. It's everybody feels alone because nobody feels heard. So if you want to stand out in this day and age, just hear people out. That's all you have to do. It's really that simple. And then you know how to help people. And that was my biggest struggle, just yesterday, was I felt like I wasn't listening to the people that I need to serve, so I didn't know what they wanted. And so that whole plan that I had all written down and everything, I was like, is this even worth anything? If they don't want it, then why should I even attempt to do any of it? So, and thankfully I got that solved. I reached out to a guy, shout out Jersey Mike. I'm going to try to get him on the podcast as well. But he was like, nah, man, these are some really good ideas. So have that too. Have people in your corner that are willing to work with you on your struggles and give you a different perception and encourage you. And that's important. That's very important. And then I actually want to get to the first chapter of this book. There's four main ideas. It's called the 4 Agreements. So there's 4 main ideas. And the first idea is be impeccable with your word. So be true to your word. And that is old as time, man. That's a good one. That's one I always try to do, because it's classic. I mean, I think my dad taught me that growing up. It's just keep your word. No matter what, like if you're going to do something for somebody, do it. Or at least tell them that you can't do it. Just like have that communication. Keep your word. People will respect it. And then when you say, oh, I can do this, I can say somebody needs to go to the grocery store. I'm like, bet I can do that in an hour. If I do that in an hour, then they'll trust me next time to do it again. And then I just build a better and better relationship just based on trust. And your word also is very crucial when it comes to how you speak to others. Tying that back to discouragement, actually. You really have, you have to be careful with your tongue. I'm a Christian, and I believe like it says in the beginning, like God made the whole universe with let there be light. Like it exploded into existence. And oh damn, that light turned off. Oh well, I'm just gonna rock like this. It'll be hella moody though. And if I was made in his image, then shoot, I probably got that same power. I probably got that same power too. Like my word means a lot. And especially how I talk about myself. That's a big one. You hear everybody talk about that. Gary Vee, everybody. You got to watch how you talk to yourself, because that's how you're going to act. If you're thinking, oh man, I'm not good. Like if you're constantly telling yourself, man, I ain't no good at this. Like what the hell am I doing here? Getting that hell imposter syndrome? Knock it off, all right? I mean, I'm saying that for myself too. Because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at the end of the day. If you just keep telling yourself you can't do something, you're not going to be able to. How can you expect to? That's another podcast. I might just link that back again. When I was talking to Destruct, he said, how can you convince anybody else that you're an artist or you're incredible at what you do if you're not convinced yourself? How can you say, yo, you got to listen to my music. I make incredible music. Like, I'm an incredible lyricist, and you can't even believe it yourself. Like, people, it's weird how people catch on to that so fast. They're like, nah, he doesn't believe it himself. Why should I do it? I mean, if he does it, he doesn't even like it, why should I like it? So you really got to be careful with that. And then, too, like, you never know what people are going through, so you got to be careful with your word when you're talking to somebody else as well. That kind of goes back to the whole cliche of, like, you never know. Yeah, I guess exactly what I just said is, like, you never know what people are going through, so always be kind. I'm a big believer in that, because, yeah, absolutely, you never know. All right, I'm going to get on to the next one, and that is, don't take anything personally. That's pretty cliche. We hear that a lot. But the way who wrote this book? I'm going to look that up really fast. The way Miguel Ruiz puts this, it made me visualize people as a bubble. Everybody's in their own bubble. That's it. And that bubble is tinted with all the experiences that they have had, all the lessons they've learned, all their failures, successes, everything. And that's how they see the world. That's how they see and they interact with the world. And so he said something along the lines of, all we are doing is interacting with our environment all the time. You listening to this podcast, it's coming out of your speaker, and you are interacting with it, with the words that I'm talking about, based on the fact that you've learned English and that you're able to understand my lingo and, like, the little slang words I use. You're just interacting with me in your own way. If somebody like hated stuff like this, they would have a much different interaction than you have. So all we are ever doing is just interacting with our environment. That's why people in the hate comments, they're just interacting with their environment based on what they've been taught, based on what they've experienced, and based on their current mood. That's it. So those hate comments, you don't need to take them personally. They're just seeing the world through their own lens, as we all are. And we're all just trying to make sense of it. So that's another reason why can't you you can give some people a little bit of grace. You're like, you know what? He's probably having a rough day. I'm going to let him slide on this one. And you don't, and I mean, that goes for going back to the discouragement. Like, you don't need to take all the words that comes out of your mom's mouth or significant others, whoever. You don't need to take it personally, because they're only seeing what they see, and that could be what they see could be based on past failures. So if they're discouraging you from doing something big, then they might have tried something big in the past, or they were too scared to, and then that fear is just coming out. So it has nothing to do with you, not a thing. And also with the encouragement too, is some people can give a lot of encouragement or a lot of compliments, but you don't want to be complimented by somebody that doesn't really do anything, if that makes sense. Because their standards of living are not as high as you want them, not as high as you want your standards to be. Like, if you're going after this thing and you're going after this music career, and you got people saying, like, hell yeah, like, keep going, and they're always saying that, like, the support is awesome. But wouldn't you rather personally, I would love to have a compliment from, like, a Kendrick, rather than, I don't know, one of the students that go to my college. Like, it's that thing, you know, it's kind of that relative of, like, oh, you've done a lot. So a compliment from you would mean a lot more than a compliment from somebody else. And even that too, even in that situation, they're just interacting with their environment. That's it. Don't take compliments too personally. That's all I'm going to say. Because if somebody is complimenting you on something and you take that to heart, then you might keep doing that to a detriment because they might not even know what they were talking about. Like I got a compliment the other day on something that I did a while ago on social media that got me, like, that totally dropped my engagement. So that was awesome that they were liking it, but I probably wouldn't do that again, even though they liked it. I'm trying to do something to help out artists and help them speak their truth. So because it wasn't getting a whole lot of engagement, I wouldn't want to do that again, because again, it's just not helping them. And I'm going to move on to the third one. Just at the end of the day, don't take it personally. Third one is don't make assumptions. That's a big one, because we are all human at the end of the day, and we are fundamentally afraid of what we don't know. That's why we got stereotypes. Stereotypes are really just an assumption, right? Like I see somebody, let's say I see an Asian person with, or I'm going to not say Asian. I'm going to say, let's say I see a Chinese person and they've got a button up and they've got a pencil like in their pocket. I'll go, damn, they probably got straight A's. I mean, that's just an assumption, for better or for worse. And there's that stereotype. I would have fallen victim to that stereotype. Granted, you can get into like the nooks and crannies of like, well, they're well dressed and but you don't need, I mean, that's just an assumption. That's just me filling in of what I don't know because I am too afraid of it. So in this book, he says to solve that, just ask questions. You always have the right to ask a question, and people always have the right to answer. Whether it's the answer you want or not, you always have the right to know if you truly want to. And I think that's incredible, because just knowing the fact that somebody has the right to say something that I don't want to hear, if I ask them a question, that, I feel like that takes a whole load off my chest, because now I'm pretty good at asking questions, like just going up to the store like, hey, yo, where's the soda? Or like, hey, where's the dish soap? Whatever. It's so nice to hear that I can ask, and if somebody says, no, I don't want to do that, or like, no, I don't want to come on the podcast. I don't want to come on the podcast. It's like, all right, cool, that's it. I don't need to be scared of that. Rather than just assuming, oh, they probably don't want to be on the podcast, and then I completely miss out on an interview. Same with you, of like, nah, I probably... What's a good example? Same with you, of like, nah, I shouldn't perform there. They're probably going to be a lot better performers there. Why should I even bother? It's like, yeah, you're going to close yourself out of that opportunity if you have that mindset, because you're not even allowing yourself the chance. At least give them the chance to say no. If you're so scared of it, just take it head on, and then they say no. That's the worst case scenario. You're not going to die or anything. Just ask. And then if they say yes, boom, you got an opportunity to perform at a venue. That's it. And I mean, that goes for DMs too. Like if you're trying to collab with somebody, granted, I will say collabing, I've had a couple people to reach out to collab with me. I'm like, I like to collab with people I actually know, so let's get to know each other a little bit first. So we get that done, and then, yeah, we put something together. But at least they reached out and said, A, they didn't make that assumption of like, nah, he probably doesn't want to collab. It's like, no, at least you can reach out and then I can give you an answer, and then yeah, that's an opportunity for you. So go out and ask. It's not that hard. It gets scary sometimes, but the return on investment is way, way high. So just go out and get that done. And then, let's see, that was making assumptions. Let's see, it was be impeccable with your word. Don't take it personal. Don't make assumptions. And always do your best. Because he said, I don't know where the highlight is right now, but he said, always do your best. And your best may not always be the best, but for that day, always do your best. Like earlier today, I procrastinated the hell out of this podcast, if I'm being completely serious. But I'm trying my best. I'm just trying to get it done. It's not easy sometimes. I mean, there's some interviews that I've done. You can probably watch, like, I definitely see it. I'm not in the right headspace to be interviewing somebody. But I try to get it done the best I can. I try to make it a pleasurable experience for them and for the audience. And I mean, my best is getting better, thankfully. About damn time, honestly. I mean, I'm stumbling on a couple words still, but just do your best. And then that's another thing too. I heard a thing Matthew McConaughey said. It's like, don't half-ass it. Because would you honestly like to live with the feeling of, oh my gosh, what if I actually did do my best? Would you regret not? Because what happens when you don't do your best, at least for me, is you start to regret it. You're like, man, I could have put in so much more effort into that thing, but nah, I just kind of did it halfway. Like, it's real. Always do your best. Like, every song, it's not going to be the best. No guarantee of that. But at least you're doing your best. You're getting your reps in, and it's going to get better as time goes on. So with that book is incredible. I highly recommend you read it. But carry these with you. The 4, always keep your word. Be careful with your word. Be impeccable with your word, but I'm going to say be careful with your word. Don't take it personal, because in this life, you're going to meet a lot of people, and they have their own lives. They're going to have their own tinted bubbles, their own tinted lenses, and they're going to carry it with them wherever they're going to see the world, however they want to see it, and it has nothing to do with you. So don't take it personal. Don't make assumptions. If you need to find the answer, if you need to get information, if you're looking for an opportunity, just ask. Because the absolute worst thing they can say is no. And finally, with the other 3, do your best. Do your best at keeping your word. Do your best at not taking things personal. And do your best at not making assumptions. You're going to stumble. You're going to fall. You're not going to always do your best. You're going to make mistakes. But do your best to keep going. Just pick your head up, get right back to it. Do your best at everything you do. Do your best at the next song you're going to write. Do your best at the studio. Do your best doing outreach. It's going to pay off because you're going to have all those reps in. So I wanted to do this at the beginning of the year because I wanted you guys to take these with you into the rest of the year with all of your other resolutions. And with that, actually drop in the comments, drop some resolutions that you have for this year. I'd love to see them. I'm going to comment back best I can. And till then, I'll see you guys next week. Actually, next week I'm super stoked for next week because I got a musicologist coming on, and he was actually a professor of hip-hop culture at my college. He's an awesome guy. He's so smart. He's actually written a couple books, so yeah, I'm super excited for next week. But yeah, till then, y'all have a great rest of your week, and I will see you then. Peace.